Victorian Secrets, Chapter 2. We Like to Party. We walked across the gravel and onto a patch of grass that quickly turned into a stone pathway, and towards the house that looked like an amalgamation of a bungalow mixed with an English cottage. What is this society like, Commander? He walked between us with his hands on our shoulders. It was on the verge of collapse. Well, it actually did collapse. It's a long story, one I'd be more than glad to impart on you two gentlemen, but first I want you to meet my partner, Christian. Partner, like in crime or something else? And Christian opened the door, and he was what I could only describe as a steampunk automaton, made of brass and steel. His body was a whirring machine held behind a plate of glass surrounding his abdomen. The mechanical gears turned inside and clicked with a precision only seen in old watches or grandfather clocks. His eyes were painted blue and green, and they had a softness to them which I never knew was possible or achievable. Hello, fellow travelers. I am an automaton, but you could probably deduce that. My apologies for the arrogant assumption. Welcome to Earth. I have tea and coffee with muffins cooking in the oven. I actually was kind of hungry, and right on cue, Cupid's stomach. We walked into the house. It was surprisingly modest. The ancient wooden floors were mixed with a simple beauty that was the studio layout of the house. The kitchen was in the back of the house, and there was a fireplace with a roaring warm fire to combat the slight chill of the air, and there were pine chairs surrounding a large rusting metal table, and around the fireplace were a few rocking chairs and a couch. As we walked in, I noticed Cupid sniffing the air. Yum, it smells like coffee and peppermint tea. Ooh, and that must be blueberry muffins cooking. Commander Browning smiled softly and pulled out a chair for Cupid and myself. So, to answer your early question, Charles, this world used to be much more advanced than this, but was ended by a tyrant named Berkowitz. He smiled while the world burned, and then one day after the collapse, he was assassinated. It was a tough call, and I lost my eye because of it, but he needed to die. It was only fair. Cupid's face looked torn between understanding and anger, but ultimately he put his hands onto Browning's. You did what not many people would have been able to or wanted to do. It doesn't make you a worse person, just one who made the right decision for the wrong reason. Browning teared up. You can say that, but do you mean it, truly? Cupid sat there with his hands still resting on Browning's. I do. If there's anything that my dad and the multiverse has taught me, it's that we all deserve to love and be forgiven. I mean it, my friend. Truly. Cupid's blue eyes sparkled in a way I'd never seen before. Thank you, son. I mean that. It's what a part of me wanted to believe, but hearing it from you has helped an old man feel at peace, for the first time in eons. Ding! Christian got up and walked over to the oven and pulled out the muffins. Anybody hungry? Cupid raised his hand excitedly, and Browning and I shared a laugh. And after a few minutes, we were all just sitting around the table as I had a cup of black coffee. Browning had a cup of peppermint tea with cream and sugar, and Cupid had a cup of milk. So what are you thinking of, Cupid? He looked up from his muffin and had a face full of muffin, and he tried to speak. Boy, where are your manners? He blushed at Browning's comment. He finished chewing and then spoke. Sorry, Commander. It's just that this is the first blueberry muffin I've had that wasn't stolen from Dad. Christian, you did a great job. Christian bowed theatrically, which made me smile. So, Commander, what did Berkowitz do that ended the Earth? It seems like a paradise to me, but I know it looks to me deceiving, as I'm an old man made young all by smoking between universes. He sighed deeply. It wasn't a traditional end, at least not that I'd ever seen before. It was a nerve agent. It killed 10 billion. Now the population over 25 years later is only up to 50 million, a fraction of what it was. My God, that was truly insidious. Cupid then asked a question. So why didn't it kill everyone? Browning, I could tell, was uncomfortable telling the story. Because it was a targeted nerve agent, it was specifically designed for those with diseases or mental health struggles. I still didn't fully understand the mechanics of it, but the agent made people violent, and they killed. He also released it into the water and made it airborne as well. Cupid again reached out across the table, and Browning's placed his hands onto Cupid's. I can only try to imagine the pain, but again, I'll offer a safe space. Berkowitz sounds like Hitler. Don't know if you had him in your universe or not, but that was a planetary eugenics perverted dream come true. Browning shook his head. Who's Hitler? Oh boy, the cat's out of the bag now. I felt the need to chip in. He was a monster back in the 1930s and 40s and led to a Second World War. He deemed a whole race and type of people with mental health conditions and exterminated with a gas in a gas chamber. Also, if you weren't white or blonde, even gay people and gypsies weren't spared his wrath. Browning looked horrified. Yeah, he truly was the worst of our version of humanity. And his home country of Germany, even over a century later, never fully recovered from the sins of the past. It just sadly shows Dad and I that humanity in any form is inherently ingenious and dangerous. It's a chillingly sad paradox. Browning pulled out an ornate white and wooden pipe, filled it with tobacco and the unmistakable scent of weed. He took a Zippo and lit it up. I know this is bad for me, but after this talk, I just need to take the edge off. Cupid and I nodded in grim understanding. I took out my own dab pen. Mind if I smoke as well? I didn't think we'd be talking about genocidal maniac leaders today. Browning nodded and took off his monocle and wiped the tears in his eye. I passed the pen to Cupid afterwards, and we all sat there in hazy silence for a while. Hey, Dad, what's coffee like? Before I was able to speak, Browning poured him a cup, with cream as he knew cats loved milk, but left the sugar for Cupid to use at his discretion. I smiled and knew this would make him more wired than ever before, but hey, kids have to learn by themselves. He took a sip and was kind of grossed out by it. Ugh, so damn bitter and acidic. Will sugar help? Both Browning and I nodded, and he took a single heaping spoonful and stirred it in. Then he took another sip and seemed to be in heaven. Yum, that makes it much better, and also, holy crap, I feel fucking alive, like I could run a goddamn marathon. Oops, sorry, Commander. Browning smiled and rolled his red eyes. It's okay, son, you're still figuring yourself out. Happens to the best of us. Then in the midst of haziness, a question formed in my mind. What year is it, Commander? He was about to answer, but Christian spoke up first. The year is 25 AB. Cupid and I looked confused, and Browning noticed. We don't have a traditional way of measuring time, and in your world, especially Western culture, went by AD, after the death of Christ. We go by a different form of measuring. AB is short for After Berkowitz. My God. Cupid seemed to sober up rather quickly. That is the worst thing I've heard yet. Pardon my potentially arrogant perspective, but wouldn't it be better to alter the name? Browning smiled sadly while crying. We've all thought about it, but to not honor the memories of those lost would be a crime greater than the original sin. And it's a powerful reminder of what we lost and are working towards. That was the epitome of bittersweet and or melancholic. I understand that I'm sorry for my sentiment. Browning reached across the table and embraced Cupid's hands. Son, please don't apologize. It's not a mistake. It's what we've all grappled with for almost 3 decades. Cupid teared up, and then both men stood and hugged it out. It wasn't cute in the traditional sense, but it was an act of radical acceptance that was truly kind. Well, I'm stoned and full, and I don't want to break up the sweetness, but if you don't mind, Commander, may we see more of the world? He nodded, and I got up, and the 3 of us walked towards the door. Christian, keep an eye on things, will you? He nodded, and we were off.